judge in former President Trump's New York civil fraud case has just ruled on a new challenge from New York Attorney General Letitia James. She wanted to have Trump's $175 million bond rejected, but the court says his bond will stand. Here's what the former president had to say ahead of that ruling this morning.
We have another trial going on right now. That's Letitia James. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I'm going to get Trump. And it has to do with a bond of $175 million. She doesn't want me to participate with financial companies in New York. So we have a company, I guess, based in California. I put up $175 million in cash, and she's questioning the bonding company.
Fox Business's Lydia Hu is here with more. Lydia.
Hi there, Emily. There have been many appearances and hearings before Judge Arthur Engoron during the course of this civil fraud trial. Many of them have been contentious, but this one stands out because the parties were surprisingly collaborative. The hearing lasted for about an hour, and during that time, the lawyers for Trump and the state attorney general's office came to an agreement about the bond. Now, questions had swirled around the company underwriting the bond. That's Knight Specialty Insurance Company. It always maintained that Trump posted cash as collateral to secure the bond. But the attorney general raised questions about how that account was managed and who had access to it and whether Knight Specialty could pay the bond if needed. So to address those concerns, here's what both sides agreed. The cash that Trump put up as collateral will remain as cash in a Charles Schwab account. Knight Insurance will have exclusive control of that account. No one will trade or withdraw the money. Knight Insurance and Trump will provide monthly statements to the attorney general's office and the court proving that the balance remains $175 million. We got to speak to attorney Alina Habba, who is counsel for the former president. Here's her reaction after the hearing.
Ms. James wanted to argue and say that our cash somehow isn't green enough. 1 hour, the attorney general and that judge realized quickly that they had no idea what they were talking about. We came to an agreement that everything would be the same. We would modify terms, and that was it. This is where your taxpayer dollars are going.
Breaking news. The former president is speaking. Court is over for the day. Let's watch.
Thank you.
And they call it a legal expense. That's the exact term they use, legal expense, in the books. And another thing that wasn't even said was we never even deducted it as a tax deduction. So that takes a whole vast area. Most people want to deduct everything. We never even took it as a tax deduction. But they called a payment to a lawyer a legal expense in the books. They didn't call it construction. They didn't say you're building a building. It called a payment to a lawyer because, as you know, Cohn is a lawyer. Represented a lot of people over the years. Now, I'm not the only one. And wasn't very good in a lot of ways in terms of his representation. But he represented a lot of people. But he puts in an invoice or whatever, a bill, and they pay and they call it a legal expense. I got indicted for that. What else would you call it? Actually, nobody's been able to say what you're supposed to call it. If a lawyer puts in a bill or an invoice and you pay the bill, and in the book, it's a little line, that's a very small little line. I don't know if you could even write more than 2 words. It's not like you could tell a life story. They marked it down to a legal expense. This is what I got indicted over. Think of it. I got indicted. I'm the leading candidate. I'm beating Biden. I'm beating the Republicans now. I have the nomination. And this is what they try and take me off the trail for. That check's being paid to a lawyer. He is a lawyer, or was a lawyer. And also the things he got in trouble for were things that had nothing to do with me. He got in trouble, he went to jail. This had nothing to do with me. This had to do with the taxi cab company that he owned, which is just something he owned, and medallions and borrowing money and a lot of things, but it had nothing to do with me. He represented a lot of people over the years. But they take this payment and they call it a legal expense, and you heard it today for the first time. This is what I got indicted over. This is what took me off and takes me off the campaign trail, because I should be in Georgia now. I should be in Florida now. I should be in a lot of different places right now campaigning, and I'm sitting here. And this will go on for a long time. It's very unfair. The judge is conflicted, as you know. It's very unfair what's going on. and I should be allowed to campaign. And whoever heard of this, you got indicted for that? People in the court just said to me, I can't believe it. This is the case. So we did nothing wrong. The other thing is, if this were such a great case, why didn't the Southern District bring it? Who looked at it, turned it down? Why didn't numerous other agencies and law enforcement groups look at it? Because it was shown to everybody. And very importantly, why didn't the federal elections do anything about it? Because this is federal, it's not state. They're trying to make it a state case, whatever. And it's not state, it has nothing to do. It's never happened before, I believe. Never happened before. This has never happened before, where the state tries to insert itself in federal elections. Nobody's ever seen it. But you know, federal elections took a total pass on it. They said essentially nothing was done wrong, or they would have done something about it. They're tough. They would have done something about it. But they said nothing, and they said, we're going to take a pass. Because they couldn't even believe it. Actually, if you read their letter, they couldn't even believe it. They were incredulous. And yet, Bragg picks it up. Now, with Bragg, if you look, when he first came in, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. Now, when are they going to look at Pomerantz and what Pomerantz did? Because that's bad stuff. And when are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? He got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying. And when are they going to look at that? Now we'll go to another subject, because just a few blocks away, as you know, they had a trial on the $175 million. That's Letitia James. It's all coming out of the White House, by the way. And that's in front of Judge Engoron. And the judge really didn't know anything. He didn't know about collateral security. He said, supposing it goes down. Well, it doesn't go down because it's cash. I put up $175 million in cash, and we have a bonding company do it. And he challenged the bonding company that maybe the bonding company was no good. Well, they're good, and they also have $175 million of collateral, my collateral. But the judge didn't know anything about it. He didn't know what the $175 million cash meant. He had no idea what anything meant. And he had no idea what he did in the trial. And he charged me hundreds of millions of dollars on something where I'm totally innocent. But if you look at what happened today, Judge Engoron should not have done that trial. It should have gone to the business division where they have complex business trials. But actually, it should have never been brought, because I didn't overestimate. You know, they say I overestimated. If you look at the numbers, they're underestimated. I underestimated. I did the opposite of what they said. And the reason that they tried to, and they did it for their own narrative, they valued a $1 billion asset at $18 million. They valued other assets in order to build their narrative. They want to build a narrative. But if you look, and I have a complete record of what happened, Judge Engoron had no idea what was going on, didn't understand the most simple concepts. And this is the man that took a case, and this is why businesses, they're moving out of New York, because they can't be subject to this. They'd be put out of business. They're moving out of New York because of it. But Judge Engoron had absolutely no idea what had happened. He didn't realize we put up 175, but when he found out we put it up, he said, what happens if it goes up or down? I said, it doesn't, or they said, it doesn't go up or down. It's cash that we put up, all cash. Very few people could do that. And the deal was approved with the Attorney General, if you can believe that. But the deal was approved. She just tried to embarrass everybody, and she tried to embarrass a very good bonding company by saying they weren't creditworthy. Well, they were creditworthy, and what was more important is they had as security $175 million that I put up. But the point here is that the judge had no idea what was happening. And this is the same judge that 2 months ago made a ruling that shook the world. It shook the world, because everyone knows going to that trial I did nothing wrong. And over here, I did nothing wrong also. This is a Biden witch hunt to keep me off the campaign trail. So far, it's not working, because my poll numbers are higher than they've ever been, because the public understands that it's a witch hunt. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trump, what was it like hearing the Access Hollywood tape? Are you worried about Stormy Daniels testifying against you? Where's Melania?
Well, the president there laying it out much like an attorney would in making his point about this case. You know, Kaylee, the entire time we were watching, everybody was just like, yeah, okay, we get this.
He is on message. That is someone who is on message. He laid out, actually, things I have in my notes. SDNY didn't bring the case. The Federal Election Commissioner doubted the case. Cyrus Vance didn't bring the case. Well, what happened between we can't bring this case, the facts don't match the law, and today, last February, when Alvin Bragg brings the case? An intervening fact happened. President Donald Trump decided to run for president. It is my belief that that played into this. How is this case dead as a doornail, unprecedented, according to the New York Times, unprecedented, according to Trusty, a lawyer, but we bring the case after Trump decides to run for president? I leave that with you.
You said something earlier this hour, and I know you've been looking for connective tissue with the current president to further those political points. Who was leading the opening statement today against the president?
Matthew Colangelo, who used to be the number 3 under Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice. He left that cushy job at the Department of Justice to go be a line prosecutor in a city office. That shows how coordinated this is. It's not just him. In fact, there was a law firm here in New York City that's known as a Democrat law firm that handed over a few of its attorneys to help bring charges against Donald Trump. This is part of a widespread and coordinated effort, and I think everyone kind of knows it. But it is really interesting to me to see this man out there today, and you look at how so many Republicans can't even handle a minute of negative coverage from the media. And this guy has people attempting to bankrupt him, imprison him. You have actual House members trying to remove Secret Service protection from him. And he knows that if he were to just be no threat to the regime, it would all go away. And every day he gets out there and he keeps making his case. And that does a lot to explain why he is so beloved by so many Americans.
Joey.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about he's on message. And if you accept the premise that most of us on this couch accept, which is that what's happening in Georgia, the lawsuits in New York, and now this trial are politically motivated. They're geared towards helping President Biden win by defeating President Trump before he gets there. We have 2 men running for president. If you want to talk about on message, President Trump is running this campaign to the American people in a way like he didn't in 2020 or 2016 even. Because you're either meeting with Lake and Riley's family or you're keeping the border open. You're either meeting with Officer Diller's family or you're letting criminals out of jail. You're either Donald Trump or you're Joe Biden.
Just a reminder where Donald Trump was this weekend. This weekend, he was in North Carolina celebrating the legacy of wounded veterans with Sarah Verardo and the Independence Fund, honoring her husband, Michael Verardo, and the struggle he's going through. So amidst this criminal trial and being just persecuted on all different levels, that man is still serving the public.
Yeah, focused on message, and the message is about the American people. He is more determined and more focused than even 16 and 20.
I think
those
so.
years.
Yep.
I could see your point on that.
Yeah.
More outnumbered in a moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.